I'm Cyndi Steele, the wife of Edgar Steele, attorney at law, father of 3, and my loving husband for 27 years. Ed was falsely accused and wrongfully convicted by our government in a plot to kill me and my mom. A plot that existed only in the minds of government agents plotting to justify their existence by making up potentially violent scenarios in peaceful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, to make it look good for the Congressional budget. I have testified and I continue to testify to Edgar's innocence. And to this day, the government continues to victimize and punish me by denying me the opportunity to visit my husband. I say punish because they wanted me to support their phony story in order to destroy Ed. But when you are up close and personal, you can see through it. I know I did. Ed was not liked by the government because he spoke out against the tyranny, so they cleverly decided to accuse him of a crime that never happened in order to punish him for exercising freedom of speech. As if a 50-year sentence, which is a death sentence by time served, is not bad enough for crimes he did not commit, they will not allow me to visit Ed in prison because they say I, a small woman, am a threat to their guards. As you might imagine, it is deeply disturbing to me that my husband said in a speech that the system eventually would silence and dispense with him. His main thesis was equal rights for all and special rights for none. But our government is filled with people who advocate special rights for themselves. Ed's adherence to the creed of equal rights has cost him everything: his life, liberty, and property. For his trouble in patriotically defending all Americans' constitutional rights to free speech, his prophetic words have become reality. They have now silenced and dispensed with him in an unlawful and immoral scheme played out in 2010 and 2011. On June 11, 2010, the government injected fear into the lives of my entire family when they falsely arrested Ed on fabricated charges. These charges were so flimsy that it took nearly 3 weeks and multiple changes of the government's story before they found one they thought would stand up in court. To this day, none of these stories, including the ones told at trial by perjury, under oath, were the truth. All this because my husband was willing to speak out against injustices Americans were facing at the hands of our own government. You may not know it, but in 2000, when Edgar was defending the freedom of speech of a group, each member of my family, even my children as young as 9 years old, received personal death threats from one of the many government-protected organizations. Ed and the entire family was targeted because he persisted in speaking out and volunteering unselfishly by offering his time and legal skills to the poor and disenfranchised. He was always a spokesman against injustice by private organizations or government, and at the time of his arrest, he was researching to write a book exposing international human sex trafficking. Edgar became known as the attorney for the damned because he took on cases for people deemed to be politically incorrect. That is, those people who themselves were demonized by the government and its puppet press. He took on such cases because he believed in everyone's right to competent representation. He opposed the government when it brought false charges against innocent people in order to promote its agenda of political correctness and conformity. And these cases gave him a forum to educate the public that the government is trying to destroy the American way of life. In my husband's case, this is how the government obtained a conviction. They fabricated evidence, used police brutality, suborned perjury, including an FBI agent committing perjury, hid exculpatory evidence, intimidated witnesses, presented false confession, violated Ed's attorney-client privileges, prosecuted the defense attorney so that he wouldn't defend Ed, and used a corrupt judge who repeatedly disallowed evidence that, as he said, would make the government look bad. The government was very clever in holding back the indictment of Ed's defense attorney, secretly using it to blackmail him to sabotaging Ed's defense. The government intentionally put Ed's attorney, Robert McAllister, in a position of irreconcilable conflict of interest, wherein he was forced to choose to save his own hide by sabotaging Ed's defense instead of running the very risk of decades in prison himself, an impossible situation which resulted in Ed's conviction. This is the same government that failed to warn anybody about a pipe bomb strapped to my car. A bomb the FBI and prosecutor had information about for at least 6 days, but was only discovered because I stopped for an oil change on my car on my way to the federal courthouse. 4 days after my husband's false arrest on these trumped-up charges, I was on my way to the federal courthouse in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, when I stopped for this oil change and found the bomb. The admitted pipe bomber, the so-called confidential source of this murder-for-hire plot, got a soft deal for lying, stealing, and attempting to murder me. He also got away with $45,000 of silver savings stolen from my husband and I, which the government allowed him to keep as his payoff for acting as their false witness. Sadly, as horrible as this has been for me, and it's not just about what happened to me and my family. This is also about how the government is committing the same criminal acts to lots of other people across America. It's a sad state of affairs when our legal system allows our government to go to extreme lengths to silence people that speak out against it. It is about how elements in the government are carrying out the silence coup to which Ed so often referred, a takeover of the American system by the banking industrial government complex at the complete expense of our freedoms, and I hate to say it, but you may be next. But as Thomas Jefferson said, all that tyranny needs to prevail is for men of good conscience to remain silent. So I am clear. I want everyone to know I'm not going to be silent. The government invented a fictional crime when I supposedly was Ed's victim, but I am not his victim. I am a victim, but I am a victim of the government and the perpetrators in my husband's wrongful conviction, which were the FBI agents, the prosecutors, the judge, and their confidential source, all of whom profited from my husband's arrest, conviction, and imprisonment. I am here to spread the truth about two powerful facts. Edgar is completely innocent, and the FBI, the prosecutors, and the federal judge committed a host of crimes in order to deceive the jury into convicting my husband. And yes, you heard me correctly. And if you wish to visit free-edgar-steele.com, you can learn more on how Edgar was framed and especially what the jury was not allowed to see. A DVD production being released this fall of 2012, which is titled Witness to the Persecution, The Plot to Silence Edgar Steele, thoroughly exposes the government's phony case where the rogue agents violated their oath of office and multiple laws to set up a completely fraudulent case against my husband, making him a victim of the government, which then made me a victim of the same government corruption.